It's time for MacBreak Weekly. We got a great big panel here to discuss what's going to happen September 10th. The new iPhone, it's coming. Details ahead. MacBreak Weekly.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust. This is Twit.
Bandwidth for MacBreak Weekly is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 363, recorded August 13th, 2013. The iPhone Outie. MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by LegalZoom.com. Go to LegalZoom.com for affordable legal solutions you can trust. LegalZoom can provide self-help services at your specific direction or connect you with an attorney. They're not a law firm, they're better. Visit LegalZoom.com and use promo code MBW to receive $10 off at checkout. And by Gazelle, the fast and simple way to sell your used gadgets. Find out what your used Samsung Galaxy, iPhone, or other smartphone's worth at Gazelle.com. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show that covers your Apple and Macintosh interests and a few other of our interests. Man, we got a giant panel today, so get ready for the rat holes. Starting all the way to my left, which is about a mile away, Mr. Andy Anatko of the Chicago Sun-Times.
What you don't understand about oak is that you really want, it's an open grain, so you want to seal it. You don't want to paint it or stain it. What you do is you take care of it. So a good tung oil or even a vegetable oil for maintenance is going to, I thought we're just, there's not a whole lot of
This is your
news,
interest?
a lot of people. We're just going to, why have the pretense that we're going to be talking all about Macs?
You may forget, Andrew, but maybe you never knew, but I hosted on the House with the Carey brothers for many years. And in fact, I know more about tung oil than any human should be allowed to know. Or Visqueen. I'm a big Visqueen guy. I know about how to prepare your walls, to keep the mold out, mildicides, and I'm an expert.
What are your thoughts on milk stains?
We'll get to that in a moment, but first...
okay, well, you're right. You're right. We don't want to blow all the good stuff in the first 5 minutes. So
save that. As Dvorak says, you're wasting material. Also here from MacCast, Adam Christensen. Haven't seen you in an age. Hey, Adam.
Yeah, it's been way too long, and I had to follow Andy. I'm not as clever, nearly.
Oh, you're more than clever enough. Just don't bring up tung oil, and you'll be all right.
Tung oil.
Where are you working these days? Because you were at Nick Software, and I want to ask you a little bit about what's happened to Nick and how the Nick folks feel. But what are you doing these days?
I podcast.
You're a full-time podcaster. That's nuts.
Almost.
You can't do that.
It's about 75%. I do a little programming on the side here and there.
I love that.
A web developer, and that's what I was doing at Nick. I was their web developer, and so that's what I'm up to these days. But hanging out at home, which I love.
And everybody's favorite Macintosh podcast, always a must-listen MacCast at MacCast.com. Great to have you, Adam.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
I've seen you in ages.
Yeah, it's been way too long.
Sorry. We'll remedy that. Also here, Renee Ritchie from iMore.com. And we're going to get Renee to tell us the scoop about this event coming up. Hey, Renee.
I was trying to Google how to polish silver to follow up Andy, but I'm nowhere near fast enough.
I find that lemon juice makes a wonderful silver polish.
White vinegar.
The thing I've learned about home improvement is really you can just make this stuff up. Really.
I walked through Home Depot, Leo. I finally realized what my mom feels like in an Apple store. Completely terrified.
What's a wrench? And, ladies and gentlemen, live in studio, Mr. Alex Lindsay, back from his global travels once again. Nice to have you.
It's good to be here.
It's always a good day when I come in and I see an extra chair. I know Alex is here. How exciting.
I made it.
How exciting.
Yeah.
Alex, do me a favor. I really want you to donate blood, because one of the things they ask you, like in the forum, is like, have you traveled outside the country in the past 3 years? And then they make you list every country you've been in, and they have to look up which one has malaria warnings. And I think that would be 2 hours of which, well, we're closed right now, and none of the people who know how to work a needle know how to do anything. But you come back tomorrow. And we'll go to north of the last continent you mentioned.
Actually, you know what? They may have a malaria vaccine. Did you see that?
Maybe.
Big breakthrough.
I just said we kill them all. Kill all those mosquitoes.
PFSPZ blocked the disease in early clinical trials. That would be huge, wouldn't it? I mean, malaria still is a plague.
Oh no, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
I've had it.
What?
A long time ago.
You never lose it, right? It's always in your blood? Like you can start hallucinating right now?
No, just thinking about it.
Malarial flashbacks?
No, I wandered
You've
off.
had it, really?
Yeah, it was bad.
It's a parasitic disease, right, from mosquitoes?
Yeah. It's I don't know. I'm not a malaria expert. I just know that it feels like the flu, except like 10 times worse.
And you get a bad fever.
Spend a lot of time. Yeah, really bad fever. You spend a lot of time in bed.
I'm glad I'm glad you feel better.
Well, the thing is, the big thing is that you don't. There's three types of mosquitoes that carry malaria, and two of the strands are not, as dangerous. And that's what most people get. That's what I got.
Oh, you got a mild malaria.
Which I don't even want to know about.
The other killer
one.
malaria.
But the other one is much more lethal.
But here's the good thing news: you have an excuse to drink as many gin and tonics as you want.
I have used that excuse in Africa quite often.
I need more quinine, please. Get me a G&T.
I know I'm taking Malarone, but get me a gin and tonic.
So September 10th, and now the fact that Ina Fried at All Things D was the first to break this, usually to me, when I see the Journal or All Things D break something, even though it's still a rumor, and we should say still a rumor, I always feel like Katie Cotton called and said, "Hey, Ina, don't say anything. Don't tell you I told you." But September 10th. And then, Renee, you got a confirmation from an equally reliable source, not Katie Cotton.
Yeah, just a couple hours after her, after Ina Fried, and then I think Dalrymple yepped it after that.
Yep.
So I would make my reservations at this point.
So what? Just I understand you cannot reveal your source. You don't want to lose them but you do say you trust this source. But really, when I see it come out all at the same time from the three of the big reliable Apple reporters, I feel like Apple must have leaked this.
So, I mean, at least from my point of view, I was getting closer. I didn't get it before Ina did, but I was getting closer to pinning it down. And then once Ina published, it was easy for me to say, well, is this correct? And then it was much easier to, get a final. Because I don't
tug your ear if we've got the right date kind of thing, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd heard rumors previous to this, but for something as important as the date of an iPhone event, I never, not ever want to get that wrong. So I make sure I have at least 2 or 3 people who are in a position to know telling me the same date. And I wasn't able to do that before her, but after she published, it was easier for me. And I was actually with Jim Dalrymple in Montreal. He was here for the heavy metal concerts, and sitting next to him while his phone was exploding with Twitter demanding that he yep it immediately. So I can only imagine what he goes through.
Isn't that funny? Jim, you're the arbiter. I don't know how he got that title, that role, that mantle.
He's been around forever.
The beard.
But a yep from the loop apparently seals it.
Or at least it's another point of data. I mean, if you've got 3 people who are usually pretty good with the dates and they're all saying the same date, to me it raises.
And here's my, me, I'm conspiracy minded. Here's my thinking. Apple's looking at all of the phones coming out. Moto X comes out later this month. September 4th, the Galaxy Note 3 comes out. You've got the 1020 from Nokia now shipping on AT&T in the U.S. You've got some of the best phones, easily the best phones we've ever seen, from top marketers, and Apple really needs to kind of stem the flow.
And don't we think that they're jockeying for position specifically because of Apple's announcement?
I mean,
it seems like they're trying to make sure that they're all on the. They want to make sure that you choose.
You're on the calendar.
Yeah, they got to be on the calendar.
And my experience with end users is they're surprisingly aware of all of this, and.
I don't know. I mean, I think our friends are very.
No. I'm talking from the radio show. These are normal people.
Okay.
And you'd be, I know, we think,
my wife
we
has
pay
no
close
idea.
Attention.
She has no idea when these things are coming out.
There's a strong awareness of what's going on, and there's a decision going on right now among consumers about whether to wait. I really think so.
Yeah.
And they want to know, should I wait? Should I wait for the iPhone? I see some pretty good phones out there. A lot of them are in the position of their 2 years. That's who people really are paying attention, people whose 2 years is up. I'm due for a new phone. And we got calls like that all weekend from people on the radio show. And so they're very aware, I think.
Just for the record, Leo, I mean, I got the date first last year and I think the year before, and that was not at all leaked by Apple PR. That was just traditional sourcing. And it might just be that at a certain point, more people within Apple or more people within the industry learn the date and it becomes easier to find out. But I've never had something, I've never had Apple PR on the phone telling me, oh, this is ready to go.
But the fact that the date has been scooped so many times indicates that even if it's not part of Apple's plan to make this a conduit for releasing information, if someone touched that third rail and died, you would never hear anybody leak that date ever again. So I think that there's at least a quiet philosophy that this is not something that we are going to work very, very hard to lock. If someone has leaked out the date of an announcement like that with less than a month away, we are going to find out we're going to try to find out who did it, but we're not going to move heaven and earth to do that. And I think that's the reason why.
It's not a bad thing for people to know. It's a bad thing for people to know what Apple's going to announce September 10th, but it's not a bad thing for them to have a date.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons Apple does it pretty consistently the same time every year, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, but this year, right?
Well, but when they make the change, they, in other words, it was known to be June. Okay, now it's known to be, I think it's well known, September.
And this was the iPod event. They just replaced it with the iPhone event.
Right.
And because I think in a lot of ways the June date was really driven by the original iPhone date, so they had to give 6 months, and so before they released it because of the FCC, and so then the June date became that. But it makes a lot more sense from a Christmas perspective to be releasing in September.
It's also I understand what you're saying, Renee. That for instance, the hall's been booked, and this is one thing Apple will love about their new campuses. They have their own hall.
Yes.
So there's less. So the hall's been booked, but that's been booked probably for a year.
Where are they doing it?
But I'm sure it's Moscone. We don't know yet, but I would bet it's Moscone.
It's not usually Moscone.
I mean, not
Yerba Buena.
But across the street, Yerba Buena. Yeah.
That's wasn't it last year? It was a movie theater, I think.
Oh, really? That's right. So they don't do it anymore at. So San Francisco has the Yerba Buena Center for the Arts, which is across the street from where Macworld is.
Oh, right next to it, really.
And next to it, and Moscone West was where the big Steve Jobs keynotes always were, including the first iPhone, and that's where the iPod events were always at the Yerba Buena Center.
Yeah.
Did they use the theater that they did the Rip Burn music event way back when? Was that what they used last year?
They used a movie theater.
Yeah.
They sometimes move around. There's a theater in San Jose they've used a couple times.
Well, where did they do it last year?
They did one at Yerba Buena and one at the movie theater, if I recall.
Oh, okay. Well, and the iPad was at Yerba Buena. So that leaks out because of the event. But I think what you're saying, and I think is probably true, Renee, is that more and more people have to know. We have to.
Well, and eventually
cater the event. We have to put up curtains.
Right,
we have to print banners. And
when you get within a month, I mean, there's print cost. There's things being printed and people going places, and eventually, it goes from 10 people knowing about it to 1,000 people knowing about it because it takes so much to get a live event off the ground.
So that makes sense.
But at the same time, like what you're saying about them probably not worrying about it as much anymore either, there's a lot of incentive for them to have this date out there because of all those factors you mentioned. You have these other phones on the market. They sort of want the information coming out for all those people who are on the fence and when's the iPhone coming? So now they've got, that time. They're not going to rush out to the store and pick up that new Android device or something, potentially.
Which begs the question, why doesn't Apple just announce it?
Because they're Apple.
I mean, seriously, people like Andy have to buy tickets usually a week ahead of time. At the worst, the most expensive air tickets, because Apple won't say it ahead of time.
But remember that we don't know what the new iPhone is going to entail. There's always going to be brand new features that they certainly can't tease.
That they can keep secret, and they should. In fact, the Moto X release is a perfect example of why you don't want people to know what you're doing, because everything had been leaked out. And by the time they announced it, it was a disappointment.
Even Verizon's Droid phones leaked all the features.
Yeah, Verizon leaked it out earlier. So this is the real question. Did you buy your tickets yet? Renee?
I did.
Renee did.
Yes.
Andy?
I am working on it.
Buy your ticket. We'll reimburse you, of course.
I do agree that, especially with Renee adding to the scrum, that's a good lock date.
Yeah. Adam, you don't come out for these, do you?
No, I'm just a podcaster. I don't get it.
Me too. I can't afford to fly to San Francisco. So
well, pretty much. I mean, you have to be print or have a blog. I mean, as far as I know, they don't generally just invite just podcasters. As far as
I don't get invited, so I might just do alt.iPhone event across the street at Starbucks.
Well, we'll of course be covering it, and we already. I got the email from Tony right away. Okay, you want to move TNT? I said, Tony, it's a month off, and it's a rumor. But I think we'll probably start planning it. And anybody who is not in the room is invited to be here for our live coverage.
I might go down. I got a new toy that we should play with down there.
So maybe you could be part of Renee's event.
Drone.
Yes.
Alex, that's a drone.
Drone.
No.
Quadcopter.
We already have drones. No. We've got a satellite dish.
Really? Yeah. Like how big?
It's a little one. It's like this. It's supposed to come in this week. So it's like just this
and
big.
Is it two-way?
It's it gives me eight megs up and down anywhere in the country.
Can we rent it?
Of course you can rent it.
All right, September 10th.
But for this,
I want you to wear it on your back.
I'm not gonna wear it on my back.
I want a backpack satellite dish. This is Alex Lindsay. I'm standing. Where am I?
No, we'll do a hangout. That's what I'm good at.
Oh, let's do a hang. All right. So if you and Renee want to be down there, the Samovar Tea Room or whatever it is across the street.
Yep.
And Andy, you could be here. I think you're going in today. We're going to send you in.
We never know who gets invited until the week before. But I feel as though San Francisco would be a good place to be on September.
I think one way or the other. We're having a party here. Apple's having a party wherever. We'll all be celebrating. So go ahead.
I was just going to say that's the great thing about San Francisco is you can go and
be anywhere.
Nothing happens.
Yeah,
it's like, damn it, I didn't get invited to the Apple event. Now I'm stuck in San Francisco for 3 days.
I guess I have to ride a cable car.
No restaurants. No. Oh, dang it.
Here's the picture of Alex with his satellite dish backpack. And
the funny thing is if I actually the funny thing is if I wear those glasses I actually don't look that far away from that.
I thought it was you. I don't know why it says Al Franken. Isn't he a senator? That's
it is Al. And
SEAL Team 6 name.
And that is about the size of the dish.
That's a joke, but I think it would work.
I might. The problem is you can't move those dishes.
Oh, you got to
get them locked.
You got to aim them. Oh, too bad. So date's pretty firm, about as firm as you're going to get. But there is, of course, a lot of speculation. I keep seeing, and every time I talk to experts like you guys, so I'm going to pose this for you. Some things I think seem pretty sure. And again, you can confirm or say you're nuts. 2 phones, a 5S, which would be same chat. Miriam Jouer on from Engadget on Twit on Sunday said, yeah, they don't change the chassis every other year, so the same chassis design, slight differences, and a 5C, which somebody said that they're not going to do that because people call it 5 cheap. That's the inexpensive, but I think the C will stand for color. So that all seems fair. It'll be plastic bagged, it'll be less expensive, but maybe desirable in some other ways. But
more durable.
The rumor that I keep seeing, Ming Chi Kuo started it, I think, is that there will be a sapphire-backed home button that will be a fingerprint reader.
An Outie home button.
It's going to stick out a little bit?
That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
That seems nuts.
I don't know if I believe that, because how do you put it in a pocket without accidentally activating it?
I think this is wrong in every respect.
I'm just disappointed it's not diamonds.
But a gold phone with a sapphire Outie home button, and Alicia Keys is creative director for BlackBerry.
Could that be like more
Johnny
bling?
Ive has lost his mind completely.
I think we can throw the gold phone out. Yeah, that was another rumor. There'd be gold. I think we could pretty much throw that one out.
Popular in China.
Oh, well, that could be the Chinese version.
Right.
iPhone 888. But other than that, I don't. Does anybody really believe? You guys have said this before, but I'm going to give you one more chance.
I don't really see I believe the fingerprint rumor in the sense that they did make that acquisition last year. Also, anytime you see a technology that really improves authentication and makes things A, more secure, and B, easier to use, that's something those are 2 things that Apple wants to put into every feature that they do. The problem with fingerprint authentication is that I've yet to see a system that works 100% of the time.
It doesn't have to, though.
Well, it kind of does.
It doesn't really. No,
it does.
And we have
okay,
we're getting them for other things, and the thing about authentication is that you.
Here's, by the way, Johnny Ive. I guess it's leaked out of the place where they're making that video for. Well, we've made the best phone we've ever made. It's gold.
No, the thing with the fingerprint is the question is whether you're using it for identification or convenience. And so typically with the ones that we're researching for a bunch of other things is that the fingerprint makes it much more convenient. And if it doesn't work, then there's a long code that you put in. You go back to the dial.
But that's the exact problem I'm talking about.
Apple would never release that, right?
But when you take the phone out of your pocket, you want to get to the thing that you want to do with it. You probably have a passcode on it, and that's like a half second or a second long pause while you key it in. If you tell them, by the way, instead of having to actually remember this PIN code and type it in manually, just swipe your thumb over this sensor as you're taking it out of your pocket. It has to work because this is something that people are just simply not going to be thinking consciously about, and they feel as though this is going to be a 1 second pause between getting access to the thing they want. So if it does, Samsung would do it that way. They would do a system that works most of the time, but not all the time, because they're not concerned about this feature being something that the consumer keeps on all the time. They just want it to be a cool demo, something they can show off, something that they'll show off to their friends for the first week, but then maybe Samsung was okay with the idea that someone's saying, this is not working well for me, I'll turn it off after about a week. Whereas that would be a reason why Apple would just totally not go forward with that idea.
And the technology is
that's the only reason why I'm kind of skeptical.
When we first started doing testing with it, the reason I'm really interested is because biometrics for I think is the future. And there's really 3 major biometric groups. There's your fingerprint, iris, and facial scan, which can either use geometry or heat. And so those are the 3 major ones that you're going to use, and the one that's easiest to make work is a fingerprint scan. What I thought was really interesting is we tried to break one, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. We got one of those little ones that you have attached to your thing, and we had different people using it, and it got it every single time. Now, the one with the little slit that comes with some of the hard drives, we never can get that one to work at all. So I think a lot of that stuff is, a lot of those things are there, but I think that being able to do that, I know that drives me. I do not want to have my phone unlocked, and I definitely don't like typing in the code. So I know that for me, that would be a big feature, is to be able to, even if it worked 95% of the time, and if I was a little sweaty, it didn't work, and I had to type in my standard code. And
my complaint is, and I should point out that my hang up about it is that I think of it as a way of unlocking the phone as opposed to simply a way of avoiding having to type in your iTunes password. So for things like making a payment or buying a cup of coffee or something like that, people might be willing to swipe twice or tap twice to make it work.
Right.
It's just I think it's a sufficiently complicated problem. And as yet, I think we've only seen one phone from another maker that tries to solve it. And Apple is not typically willing to be the first company to stick their neck out with something. They're more historically. It seems as though they come up with a great solution after someone else has shown a way to do it poorly.
Well, I think you're both right. Here's the thing. And I think you would agree, Andy, if Apple somehow magically was able to create a 100% reliable fingerprint reading, and given that they bought a fingerprint reading company a year ago, that's conceivable, would they put it, I know typically they don't put in anything that's not been done in their phone. They still don't have an NFC. But if they did,
they don't like it.
Wouldn't it be a killer feature? If it were really reliable.
If it really worked, and especially because Apple is a company that has lots of infrastructure, the things you can do with authentication, not just simply unlocking your phone.
Well, think of Passport. I mean, you could put credit cards in Passport, and this becomes your wallet. Everything you need.
Yeah.
And all that's missing, by the way, and this I know from many interviews with people who are involved in currency and finance, the big issue, the total issue with money is authentication.
Well, and
if you can authenticate you and me, we can have payments, no problem.
Mm-hmm. Right. And when you're talking about that type of thing, you're talking about not only money, you're talking about voting, you're talking about all kinds of other things that, as soon as we can do that, and I'm not just talking about like political voting, I'm talking about voting on television, voting on whatever, where you can only authenticate that once.
And
it changes a lot of things very quickly.
If I'm Apple, I'm sitting here. If I'm Tim Cook, I'm thinking we got to do something. We are being eaten alive, nibbled, admittedly, not big gulps, but we're being eaten alive by the ecosystem around us, which is coming up with a better camera, with better everything in individual dribs and drabs. We've got to do something that says we're the best, and that means not doing something like NFC that's been done, but doing something they've never done before.
And also,
but now, admittedly, they have to get it right.
Well, I mean,
because they don't do stuff that Siri.
I was gonna say Siri and Maps. Siri and Maps show that they can.
Maybe it's a new Apple.
They can experiment.
But if they could do it 99% right and it really worked, wouldn't you want to be the first out of the gate, Andy?
It's a special situation because I think Apple would do it if it would make their phone and their products better and their services better. I don't think that they would even be necessarily thinking about anything that has to do with anything that works outside of Apple, because I don't think that's a problem that Apple can solve. If that's going to be useful for payment systems outside of Passbook or outside of Apple's control, that's not going to be a decision that the banking industry is going to allow Apple to make. They're going to try to come up with their own solution, of which Apple is going to be invited to be a part. So Apple is fundamentally a holistic company. That anytime they put a new feature into the iPhone, it has to make the whole phone better. Again, that's a fundamental difference between Apple and Samsung. Samsung is the company that will do a whole commercial about a feature where if you look away from the phone, the video stops playing, without a real care about whether the feature really works well, whether it's relevant, whether it enhances the rest of the experience. Whereas Apple is more than happy to keep NFC off of a phone because they can't figure out why it makes sense for the entire device. If we see fingerprint authentication, we're going to see them, I think, do it in a way that enhances the entire phone and not just simply adds a feature in the commercial. They
aren't there strings in iOS 7 that indicate fingerprint?
Well, and the other thing is that this is really hard to do. Like, so what we're talking about is really hard to do, which makes it very, very hard to do at a low cost. Which means that you put it in a premium phone and you make it something that if it works well, it is a huge competitive advantage, because a lot of the other companies that are trying to go for low cost phones, suddenly you have governments and you have government agencies and corporations and everything else. If this really works, it means that I know that in our company we wouldn't, if it really worked, like if we knew that it was really going to work and it was really reliable, we would require it. Like it would be, that would be the end of that. Your phone has to have that in there, because we don't want to send anything to you that doesn't have a biometric response.
They have had phones like with finger. I mean, I remember the Windows mobile phone that had a
fingerprint
reader, and the Android one that had and it didn't work. And in Alex's point, they'd have to get certification and still on top of that. And some people would still want the fingerprint scanner plus the passcode because they want something they know and something that they are, so they could have multiple authentication. But I think Andy's exactly right. It's a coherence issue with Apple. Does this make the product better, and does it enhance the overall value of Apple's entire offering? And if they can nail that, it'll be in. And I've heard rumors that saying that it's in and that it's not in, and that maybe it's 80% in. But there were huge discussions about Siri before they decided to launch that, and huge discussions about Maps. And I wouldn't be surprised if there were huge discussions inside Apple similar to this one about whether it works, does it work well enough, and does it enhance the value of our product? And at some point, Tim Cook or whomever it will be will put a stamp on and say yes or no for this year.
Although if they're already building it, and it's pretty clear they are already building it, we're seeing such good images from China of the both iPhones that it's obviously in production. They pulled that string. They had to have pulled that string.
They yanked cameras out of iPods like literally a week or two before they shipped them. Yeah. So they're one of the most agile companies.
Yeah, but you don't build a fingerprint sensor, which actually has to have some significant cost, into phones and then not turn it on.
Well, and we're only focusing on the one thing. Does the thing work, and how would it function in the phone? But there's a couple other rumors surrounding this story that you keep hearing. One is that Outie button. I mean, the minute I heard that, I said, there's no way Apple's going to put a sticky Outie button on the iPhone. I mean, that just doesn't seem realistic.
I don't even know why it would have to be.
Yeah, the other factor we've been hearing about is yield issues, that this could cut their ability to ship phones by a third, if you want to believe those rumors. And that's a significant cut. And they've been having that
Apple is not afraid of yield. I mean, like,
I know they're not.
I know, but like
afraid of it,
when these trackpads, when they first came out, the rumor is from a very, very good source. The rumor is that the yield was 40%. So 40% of all of the ones made would actually work to Apple's specification.
iPad panels and Retina panels were the same.
Yeah, I just think this is different though, because this product has been so awaited, and Apple's going to want to ship these globally and have a ton of them available. And that's just one piece of this, right? In my mind, I'm seeing 3 reasons why they might not do it, and not hearing a whole lot of reasons why they should go forward with it. I think they want to get it in there, but if it's not going to be 100% reliable, and they're not going to be able to meet their design goals, and they're having yield problems, I can't imagine why they would want to do it.
There's an argument to be made, and
I'm sorry, Renee. Go ahead, Renee.
No, I was going to say there's an argument to be made, and we talked about it earlier in the year, the iPhone 5S problem, that this is a talk cycle for Apple. They did the iPhone 5. This will look, to all intents and purposes, the same as the previous year's iPhone. They already got erroneously called boring for the last iPhone, even though it was rebuilt from Atom up. And this is going to be an extrapolation of that in an environment where, like Leo said, you have Moto X and you have Samsung Galaxy S4 and HTC One, and you have whatever the next Nexus 4 is going to be. So it's a more competitive environment than ever, where Apple's bringing a product to market that may have less appeal than any product they've done iPhone-wise for many years. Yeah. And Apple is not so insulated that they don't think about these things as well. So if there's got to be something in that Santa Claus ad that has Santa Claus saving Christmas with FaceTime or with Siri or with something, and a fingerprint scanner could be a cool, could be a good Phil Schiller demo, a good Santa Claus commercial, and something that at least excites people when they see the iPhone 5S commercials.
Just one more thing that, and I myself don't like it when we turn this into a show about other people's phones, other people's computers, but sometimes competing devices give you an illustration as different ways of working that actually work very well. Moto X has a really good solution, which is trusted devices, where if you simply have a Bluetooth device that you can tell the phone that, look, if you are within proximity of this device and there's a connection between these two devices, just assume that I'm me. Because if someone is inside my house next to this computer, next to this iMac right here, they probably already have access to anything they could steal from the phone anyway, so don't bother asking for a passcode. If I'm inside my car and I'm connected to this Bluetooth headset,
that's not super secure, though. I mean, I use that. I'm using it right now.
I'm saying that there are other. When we 5 years ago, for thinking of how our devices are going to secure themselves, we always think, how does this work in sci-fi? Well, there's always a fingerprint scanner, or we do a retina scanner, or a blood sample, or something like that. Sometimes it's hard to realize that if you put this inside a larger environment, there might be an even simpler way of doing it that only involves the existing Bluetooth chipset that's already inside every single phone, and just simply a way of putting in support for a wireless authentication that is secure and is trustworthy and might be able to be used, a device that you wear on your wrist as your authentication device. I don't know if anybody.
But then they just steal your watch when they steal your phone,
well,
and that's not.
But I think that what I would love, to build on what Andy's talking about, is the ability to do. I can do my fingerprint, I could do a voice print, I could type in a code, and everything in my house unlocks. There's three layers.
I love this Bluetooth unlocking. So when I get within my range of my iMac, this laptop, you see it says you're unlocked. My car, and at home it unlocks. But as soon as it's out of 30 feet range of this, this was the feature actually on Moto X. One of the features I was most excited about that I didn't hear a lot about in rumors. People say, "What were you talking about?" That was it. The idea that it knows where it is in the proximity.
That certainly isn't appropriate for every security situation.
No, it's good enough for me though.
It's an interesting idea, and it's good enough for me too.
Yeah,
I don't know if you guys
we know
saw
Apple
it,
has. Sorry, go ahead, Rennie.
I was going to say 9to5 Mac, I think, had a video when they found a screen in Apple TV that said, bring your iPhone close for automatic setup. Ooh, so I don't think it's a technology that Apple is foreign to it either.
Right.
Yeah, so if we don't get fingerprint scanning, what are the tentpole, features that we're going to see in a new phone? I mean, because they have to have.
If they improve the camera,
two flashes. Two flashes?
Well, not just two flashes, but also an upgraded signal processor. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've been like just neck deep in camera phones for the past 3 or 4 weeks as I'm desperately trying to finish up this Lumia 1020 review. But so one way to improve it.
You still haven't finished it?
No, I didn't want to say it.
I'm finished, but now it's to the point of now I have to edit my photos, and now I have to talk to the web manager at the Sun Times. So you mean that I can't make a picture bigger than? Okay, I'll find a way to tell this story. But I'm doing lots and lots of side-by-side tests, and the damn thing is that for a phone that does not have the miraculous stabilized lens, it doesn't have the miraculous 41 megapixel image sensor, the iPhone 5 takes some damn fine pictures. It still kicks the butt of every other phone out there outside of the Lumia 1020, and it's not as though the pictures that it takes, even with a side-by-side comparison with that really highly advanced optical technology that Nokia has, it's not as though it's taking a ridiculously poor picture too. So there's a lot of secret sauce involved in making a good phone camera. And for Apple, I really think the secret sauce is the signal processing. When you take one of these pictures and you see that, wow, there's a lot of shadow detail that was not in any other picture. It's doing the white balance is tack perfect every single time. It knows how to make the colors a little bit wrong just to make the picture look better without looking artificial. There's a lot of secret sauce there, and if all they do is keep the same frame, the same body, but improve the glass, improve the processing, and just create better pictures, that's the sort of user-facing feature that people immediately react to.
Well, and I agree that low light still, I think that there is rumors that they're going to do a 2.0 aperture. And I think that the only thing that matters at this point for these phones is low light and optical stabilization.
You got some tough competition at the high end with the 1020 and at the low end with the HTC One, which does amazing low light photography. 41 megapixels versus 4 megapixels is a big difference. I think that's the frontier. It's not the entire market, but there's a significant section of the market that does say, what's the best camera phone?
Well, because I think a lot of us, I have to admit that 90% of the photo, I have a good SLR camera, but 90% of the photos, 95% of the photos that I take are with my iPhone. And that is very important to me. And getting
right.
And I'd be happy to pay more for a larger chip and better low light performance and not have shaky camera photos every time I take them inside, which still occurs.
It's that aperture. If they do go with the wider aperture and a faster lens, that's a big deal, because every time that in these side-by-side shots I see that the iPhone 5 failed, it's almost always because it was forced to go for a longer shutter, and so it's an okay picture. It's fine for Instagram, but in terms of something that you want as the last picture you took of your kids with the dog before the dog got killed, that's not as good as.
Well, and I would love to see larger chips, not necessarily more pixels, but larger chips that gave us shorter depth of field.
That was the point of the HTC One. Yeah. So you guys may be skeptical, maybe you're believers, but the stock market is going crazy right now. Apple up $21 today on news that Carl Icahn has taken a large Apple stake.
See, now I would sell if I found out that he was taking a large stake. Carl Icahn has come to ruin your company too.
It's pretty much obvious. You buy on the rumor, you sell on the news.
I'm on the business of. I'm almost finished with Dell, and then I will move on.
Change his phone number.
Yeah. So Icahn is the guy who comes in and becomes the protest investor.
Yeah, he defines vulture.
He got is it Yahoo that he got completely changed? HP, I don't remember, but anyway, I don't know what that means. I don't know what a large stake is.
I can only imagine if Steve was still alive, he would just call him and just tell him to F off.
He said the tweet that came out 11:21 this morning was, we currently have a large, which is like 10 minutes ago or half an hour ago. We currently have a large position in Apple. We'll believe the company to be extremely undervalued. Spoke to Tim Cook today. More to come. That's definitely the implication. Is I asked Tim, what are you announcing? What is it that you're going to do that's going to make the iPhone 5S take over the market? And Tim said something that Carl Icahn, whether he's smart, I don't know, but
well, Tim's not allowed to say anything, is he? I don't think he's legally allowed to talk about anything.
That would be called insider trading, wouldn't it?
Or it's just not fair. Like, you're supposed to announce to everyone at the same time if you're a public company. So I don't think you can.
Icahn said he met with Tim Cook on Wednesday to push for a larger stock buyback. It could be, and we should point that out, have nothing to do with technology, have everything to do with Tim Cook saying, oh, yeah, we're going to buy back more stock, and Icahn saying, good, I want to get in on that.
Right.
Stock market isn't that smart. When you see the news cross the wire, somebody's taking a large position in Apple, you just buy. That's why it's up $21 right now.
It's like the West Wing, Leo. I had drinks with Sam Seaborn last night. Sam Seaborn didn't tell me anything, but I had drinks with Sam Seaborn last night.
Well, and the other thing is that someone savvy could announce that they did that and then sell.
Pump and dump.
Yeah, pump and dump it. So
I don't really like the stock market, but I just thought I'd pass that along as a data point. Probably a useless data point. Icahn's the one who's also keeping Michael Dell from buying Dell, so
I know.
He goes where the money
Steve Ballmer to keep busy with? That would be
fun. Yeah, bother Steve, would you? Please. Not enough volatility in the Microsoft stock to make it worthwhile.
Go be sweaty someplace else.
Let's take a break. You guys look at our rundown, see if there's something. I guess we could talk about this since Alex is here.
What have I got myself?
Well, I thought this blog post about the idea of what is a pro user.
Oh yeah, I'd love to talk about
was interesting from Ken Seagal. But first, a word from LegalZoom.com. LegalZoom is not a law firm, better. LegalZoom helps you do the kind of legal work you can do very simply, without a lawyer, very effectively. And I'm going to give you an example from my own life. The corporation that runs Twit, the LLC, I set up in 2005. I think it was, I don't remember what LegalZoom charged back then. It's $99. I think it was less. It's $99. It's cheap. I didn't need a white shoe lawyer. I didn't need anything. I just went step by step through their simple questionnaire, filled out the forms I need, filed it, and we're still using that operating agreement, which is kind of cool.
It's still working.
It still works fine. And believe me, now we have the law firm, and it's a lot more expensive than LegalZoom was. S-Corp,
That's like the cost of a call for like 10 minutes. Like,
no,
just thinking.
No. 10 minutes, maybe.
Yeah.
They bill by quarter-hour increments, so it's there's nothing I can't say hello to my lawyer for $99. Seriously.
Yeah.
But don't get me started. That's why you want LegalZoom. Incorporation, S-Corp, C-Corp. You know, this is National Will Month. Do you have a will? You have a will. You got children, you ought to have a will.
I do have a will.
Okay. Even if you don't, if you just have assets, if you die intestate without a will, how do your assets, how do your children get handled? Well, the courts decide. They say what's going to happen to it. And they may not agree with what you thought you were going to do. It may not be what you think. Last wills are discounted 15% through the end of the month, through the end of August. Most people finish the online process in 20 minutes. It's easy. It's that easy.
Well, the big thing is, even if you're going to someday do something more complicated, it's just worth putting something down.
That's how I felt with the LLC, although here we are 8 years later.
Right, exactly. Yes, exactly.
Your will is state-specific. It's not just some form that you check boxes on. No. It's state-specific. It's completely personalized based on your information. They've been doing this for 12 years. They know how to do it. It is National Make-A-Will Month, which I think actually is pretty important. Go to LegalZoom.com. You'll get 15% off your last will. But this offer does end soon. And you know what? Your life could end soon. So don't, I know, that's depressing. Are you going to run out of here and make a will? Do you have a will? All right.
I don't know if I really want to be here anymore.
But no, I'm just saying, you never know.
You never know.
Walk out the door and a bus could drive by, even though no buses drive by on this street.
No buses.
That'd be that one day.
And then you weren't looking because no buses.
I've never seen a bus. That's terrible. But make a will, really, seriously. I know we're joking about it. We're whistling past the graveyard. It's so important. Get a living trust. You'll receive a pour-over will absolutely free. Trusts are not expensive either, by the way. If you want help from an attorney, the legal plan that they have is great. They have business or personal. It's a flat rate, pre-negotiated. You can choose your attorney based on the attorney's profile or reviews from actual users. They're unedited, so you really get a sense. To save time and money on wills, powers of attorney. By the way, a durable medical power of attorney, they could do that too. You ought to have that. I hate to say it. As long as we're talking depressing, you really ought to have that. Wills, trusts, everything you need. Healthcare power of attorney is a big one. Gotta encourage you to do that. Go to LegalZoom.com. Use the offer code MBW. You get self-help services at your specific direction or speak to a legal plan attorney at a pre-negotiated rate to get your questions answered and get ongoing advice. And to get a thank you for using LegalZoom through our show, make sure you use the offer code MBW in the referral box at checkout and you'll get $10 off. LegalZoom.com. Just use the offer code MBW for MacBreak Weekly. And really, seriously, I know I'm being grim, but this is important stuff. LegalZoom.com. National Will Month. I don't know if did you read this, Alex?
Yeah, I did.
Ken Segal is a creative director. He's worked at Apple and Next. He says, I took a blood oath to uphold the principle of simplicity. He wrote Insanely Simple, the obsession that drives Apple's success. And he's talking about Apple's evolving view of what a pro is. Of course, he's restating the obvious. They haven't updated the Pro in a long time. In fact, even the Mac Mini has had Thunderbolt for 2 years, but not the Mac Pro. It's due. He talks about the fact that there's no more 17-inch MacBook Pro, the changes to Final Cut, the fact that Aperture hasn't been updated since, well, it's been updated, but the last version was released February 2010. Right. I didn't even realize that.
It's been out there for
Not a lot of attention paid to this. Here's the thing that I find fascinating. He says Steve Jobs did, in fact, once consider abandoning the Pro market. This is not the first time this discussion has been had. Back when the iMac was huge, during one of the agency's regular meetings with Steve, he said he was considering killing the Pro products. And it's what we've been saying for a long time. The consumer products have an unlimited upside, while the pro products consume major resources, but it's a niche, a tiny market. Steve did, in fact, renew his commitment to the pros, realizing that it's really important. Pros are opinion leaders, influencers.
Which they found out when they, changed Final Cut and everything else.
Yeah.
How much damage, how quickly you can end up on Conan.
A lot of damage.
When people, when the editors at Conan are upset. So, I definitely think that there is I think that there's a couple things. One is that what is a pro, what pros need and what is a pro has changed dramatically over the last 10 years. I think that Apple definitely moved away from the pro market. So I remember back in the days of Shake when we had a very high-end compositor that Apple owned that Apple decided to move away from and eventually open source and then just kill. I think there was a lot of interest that Apple had in 3D. I mean, before the iMac really took off, Apple really looked at that as their pro market, as their kind of lifeblood. Before the iPod, those are the people that were willing to spend extra for hardware. I think that the big reason that we saw a long delay in the Mac Pro was obviously when we saw its release is that Apple was thinking different. I don't know whether we all agree with it yet, but there was an enormous amount of redesign. It wasn't just simply upgrading and adding a couple little bits and pieces. So I think that was there. I actually don't. I just finished doing a long edit over the weekend in Final Cut 10, and there was a moment where I thought, it was really complicated, and I thought maybe I would use Final Cut 7, and I actually opened up Final Cut 7 for the first time in a long time, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I used to use this. Just like, it was so ugly. And I went back to Final Cut 10, I spent the next, the weekend. They are doing it. I can't even imagine. I don't even know how I would do the edit that I did in Final Cut 10 in Final Cut 7. So I don't even know how I would do it in Premiere. It was just very complex. And so and because of the way that I can nest things and everything else, it was just a lot easier. So I don't think that Apple necessarily. I think when it first came out, Final Cut 10 was really was behind, and I think at this point, I think that people are still relating to its first days, not where it is now. I think that when we see, I strongly believe that when the new Mac Pro comes out, I think we're going to see a new Final Cut I think a lot of these Pro apps are going to be upgraded to take full advantage of those. And I think that at that point you see once again this kind of marrying of hardware and software that we haven't seen Apple do well for a while, where the technical specs of the hardware match up with the software requirements, perfectly.
I have a savings account for my Mac Pro. And you might want to start one too. There's been a little discussion over what this might cost.
We're leasing them. Lots of them.
So AnonTech had a price list for the V2 E5 Xeons that Apple has already announced they're going to use. Mm-hmm. You're talking $2,000 for the processor. Mm-hmm. And one of the things Marco Arment writes in this blog post about this that came out yesterday or the day before yesterday is that clocks. You got a balance, and you know this.
Yeah.
For a lot of what you do, raw clock speed is very, very, very important. Right. Having multiple cores is great for rendering and so forth, but if you have,
it's all about throughput.
A lot of Intel chips are slower. Like, look what's in this: a slower clock speed in my MacBook Air. Are slower clock speeds, more cores, but you're hitting the thermal wall here as you get over 3 gigahertz. In fact, Intel's yet to do a 4 gigahertz processor. They've really said we cannot, and yet many pro apps would like the fastest clock speed possible. So if you look at the price list, we're talking anywhere for an 8-core 3.3 gig, $88 per gigahertz is $2,000. This is the processor in quantity, by the way. Not like you went to the store and bought one. This is if you buying lots of whatever, 10,000. $2,321 for the processor. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Marco thinks that we're going to start at $3,500 for the base model Mac Pro.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Probably. Yeah.
But I don't know why you'd bother. As Apple, if you're going to build a Pro machine, especially if it's not upgradable, you're going to, not in the same way that we would normally see upgradable. Why would you bother making a computer that's less than $3,500 when most people you can run an iMac 27-inch.
Entry level for a CPU that makes the Mac Pro barrier worth crossing $5,000 and up.
Yeah.
Who the hell's going to buy that?
People forget the 2FX was $11,000.
Yeah, and you know what the FX stood for in a lot of people's lexicon was too fracking expensive. And I'm being generous on the frack.
In college, and it was awesome. One of the reasons I went to the program.
You had a 2FX?
We had a whole lab of them. They were brand new installed when I toured the program. I went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo for printing. And they were pre-press machines, and we had, all that stuff, and it was incredible.
I admit I bought a 2FX.
I could only afford the 2CI for $6,000.
Yeah,
I have a 2FX motherboard on my wall in a frame. That's how much.
The point is people bought them, and so if you do the math, it seems to me like pro machines have kind of just been pro machines at the pricing that they're at for forever.
The thing is that when you're doing it as a pro, the big thing you're not paying attention to the cost of the hardware, you're paying attention to the cost of the labor. And so the thing is that labor adds up really fast. And so the thing is that what someone being 5 or 10 or 15% faster at what they do, over a month, will pay for, a lot of times the delta between two pieces of hardware, definitely over a year. And so that's the thing that, the math is much different than when you're buying it at home. And when you're buying it at home, you're not getting paid to play games. When you're working on it, you're getting paid per hour.
But this is going to be a great gaming machine.
It is going to be a great gaming machine. It's going to, but I think that for us, we just, there's a handful of tools. We don't need all of them. We have tons of iMacs. The school in Rwanda that we have has 40 iMac, 27-inch iMacs. We've got probably 15 of them here. And for most people in the office, the iMac 27-inch is plenty. And for everybody else, the Retina 15 inches are plenty. But there's a handful of things that we do that we would love to, buy these machines for. And I think that we're not the only ones.
It's not just the machine. They're going to be dropping $5,000 on the machine, plus a display, plus a RAID system, a Thunderbolt RAID. And you're talking 10, 11 grand, but I know.
A non-tech says we're talking a Hyundai. You could buy a Hyundai for this.
Well, but even with the old one, we budgeted when we were building them. The budget in our office was $12,000 per Mac Pro, and that was to be rigged out the way that we needed to be for production. Like if we're going to not. Most of our computers are iMacs. So the thing, most of our production's on iMacs, but if we're going to get a Mac Pro for 3D, for heavy duty editing, for compositing, the budget was $12,000. And we bought them carefully, slowly. We didn't have a lot of them. We definitely have a lot more iMacs to do that.
I can't wait to get one.
Yeah.
But I'm going to play games on it just to show you that I am in the 1%. I'm going to
sit there and stare at it.
I'm going to it'll be my home theater PC. It's coming to my home.
Table.
You see that cylinder there? That cost more than my car.
Wear it like a fez, Leo.
This is why my golf clubs are a combination of clubs that I inherited from my uncle when I was 11 years old, clubs that I found on the course, and clubs that I've bought at Building 19 one by one as I needed them, because I don't like to. It's enough hard work for me to rise to a level of competence in what I choose to do. If I'm going to be intimidated by the tools with which I'm going to use it and saying, oh, nice. So you have a $3,000 set of clubs, and that's what you're doing with them. Oh,
I'm that guy. I'm that guy.
The engineers at Ping would kill themselves knowing what you just did with that sand shot.
I want a unified thermal core, and I'm going to pay any amount to get it. It'll be great on my yacht.
And after being a curmudgeon, I have to say that the. When Burke was walking around, I think with tape, with the tape thing of like, this is how big it's going to be. And I realized I could fit a whole bunch of them into a 1650 Pelican case. I was like, okay, they're not that bad,
It's going to be really hard for me to buy this. I want it desperately.
It won't be hard for me at all.
It's the closest thing to sex that a computer could possibly be. And yet it's going to be, we just got, now they're not going to announce this in September. This is the October announcement, right? Gotta be.
No, yeah. They've already announced it, so it's going to be just the release.
Release
we saw with the iMac last year. They can get real close to holidays.
When will they have it out? January, December? When?
Orders being taken by the end of this year.
Yeah. And by the way, while I'm very excited about it, I would highly recommend not being the first one on the list. I am not going to be the first one to buy this. This is anytime Apple builds an entirely new structure. I have never seen one come out where there isn't some weird, the glue on the chip, it burns. You know, they're smoking.
Wait until the first 3 fire investigators figured out what went wrong, and then wait for revision.
Yeah. With hardware updates with Apple, it's always 0.1. Just wait for 0.1. You know, you just you know, they're okay.
My attitude is somebody's got to buy it first.
Yeah, there we go. I will buy. I mean, here's the deal: is we'll buy one because we want to test it, but we're not gonna
I'll
jump.
buy it because we have to review it.
Right, of course.
And I invite you over. We'll have a little pajama party.
You and I can play.
We'll play with it.
Play games on our test units,
now,
our review units.
Somebody was saying in the chat room, and I think this is probably true. You don't just announce this; you have to announce a new Thunderbolt monitor, possibly 4K because it supports 4K.
You don't have to, but it'd be nice.
It would be.
You
nice.
have to. Why not? Look, if you're going to take people's money, take it all.
Traditionally, they've gone to better monitors for the iMac first, and then carried them down to the Thunderbolt. It'll be interesting to see if they want to go Thunderbolt first this time, and then bring them over.
Don't you think, in some ways, this is a flagship? You know, don't car companies do this? They build a car nobody can afford. You know, but that's the car you look at and you go, that must be a good company. I think I'll buy. Like, I can't afford a Cobra, but I'm going to buy a Mustang.
Like everyone comes into the Apple store to look at the new Mac Pro, and then they
buy an iMac.
Okay, well,
don't you think you trick this out? You make this be. You don't even look at price. Tim Cook says, you know, just do this, this, and this. I don't want to see how much it's going to cost. Just do it. And then that's the one you have one in every Apple store. People come and go, oh. And some nutcases buy it. But most of the time, I mean, I don't know who's going to buy this. It's going to be so expensive.
They do this a lot, though. They'll make one model of something that's the first time you've seen anything like this, and it's ungodly, outrageously expensive. But then 3 or 4 years later, they figure out which features need to trickle down into like the mainstream line, or ways to make this into a productive thing, like the difference between the MacBook Air. Between its debut and now being the true Volks machine.
I remember literally pressing my nose against the glass, looking at Elisa, and thinking, $10,000, but wanting it so bad. And you better believe when the $2,500 Macintosh came out 2 years later, I bought it within the first month.
Right.
So it really does. It's a good thing to do for a company. Whether they have to make very many of them, I don't know.
Yeah. And another thing is that Apple really is a company that has to keep making machines like this. They have to keep maintaining their position as the company that's doing the next stuff that you're going to want in a year from now, or 2 years from now, or 3 years from now. Because if they'll ever allow themselves to be dragged down to street level with every other manufacturer and just be another manufacturer of very, very practical for the 80% of users out there laptops and desktops, a lot of people are going to say, well, why don't I, if they're making very ordinary machines, why don't I just save $400 and buy the exact same configuration only in a Windows machine? So this, even if this does not become like that part of the revenue chart that is noticeably thicker than than cables and iPod accessories, it'll have that role of making Apple keeping Apple's reputation as here's how clever these young men and women and middle-aged men and women and occasionally old men and women at this company are. They can make things that work like spit as fast as that and look as cool as this.
There's nobody who could make this besides Apple. Nobody wants to make this besides Apple.
That was true.
Bang & Olufsen,
what's that?
That's what they do.
It's a router, right? Is that the D-Link router?
That's a router?
Yeah.
It looks just like an Apple. It's only $200. Maybe I'll just buy that instead.
Oh, you can do a lot of routing. Not a lot of gaming, but a lot of routing. I can get that Ethernet connection to you.
Is that designed to go with the Mac Pro or just to steal it? Because it looks just like the Mac Pro. Wow. Where do I get that? That's only $200. That suddenly seems very cheap.
Well, and again, I think that when we talk about operations that are labor intensive that will be sped up by a faster computer, I mean, this stuff becomes, it really balances out pretty quickly. There's a pretty large market for that. It's not. I mean, it's not going to be the same market as the iPod or the iPhone or the iMac, but it's large enough to. I think it'll be a profitable unit.
And it also serves the very important point to get back to this original blog post by Ken Segal of saying, yes, we have a Pro product.
Yep, and a no compromise Pro product. Not like we didn't just give you something off the back of the truck that we think is okay. We designed something from the ground. It had been a lot of fun to be the engineering team that got to build that is like, yeah, there's no real cost limits or anything else. Just make it as cool as you can.
Wouldn't you love to see the sketches where they looked at it and said, no, that design is too out there. Let's do something sensible like a black cylinder.
They were watching Empire Strikes Back, and they came back to the left.
Any surprises? Any one more thing on this in the September or October announcement?
Well, I think we're expecting Retina Mini and iPad
that would be a good one
5.
more thing.
That won't be September, as far as I know.
You don't think so?
They haven't said anything about iPods yet. Last year it was iPhones and iPods in the same event, and then October was iPads and Macs. And they have those 4 things now, and they could theoretically mix and match depending on what's ready and when. But there's no word on iPods yet. Maybe iPods, and then iPads and Macs maybe in October.
And don't forget that iOS 7 is going to be as big a deal in September as anything else. The first, because again, it's a way for everybody who thinks that they know what the iPhone is has an opportunity. They're going to invite them in to say, no, you have not seen it yet. This is a total reinvention while maintaining a lot of the equity that we've built over the past 6 years. And I think that if there's a reason for Apple not to overload the September event with out of the box, out of category stuff, like we're not going to see, here's the new iPhone. Oh, and by the way, here's a progress report on the new Mac Pro. I think it's going to be as much about iOS 7 as anything else.
But I can see the iPad, the iPads, and the iPhone all going out in one group because they want to talk about iOS 7. I could see that all happening in one event.
Yeah. Alex had asked, what those pillars were for the iPhone 5S launch, and I think for sure a huge one is iOS 7. Just the software and the updates that are in there.
They spent a lot of time on that.
I'm wondering if the rumor is Apple spending an incredible amount of money on the maps, so it'll be interesting to see if they show us an update with a lot more accuracy.
They didn't. I think I was going to just simply say this, but I think that I'm actually quoting Renee from a few weeks ago. One of those things where Renee says something, I think, damn it! If I'd gotten another half hour to think about it, I would have thought of something as clever as that too. But I will give Renee the proper quotation that Apple reminding us that Apple does usually hold something back from the developer release that either isn't ready yet or needs an extra context, or they really just want to have something cool to show off in September. So I'm curious to see what's in iOS 7 that hasn't been seen yet or hasn't been discovered by people who pore over the source files.
Charlie Rose got in a plane, flew to Silicon Valley to talk to Larry Ellison, the CEO and founder of Oracle, one of the richest men in the world.
He's roughing it at Larry's place.
Roughing it Larry doesn't leave the place, so Charlie.
Why is he's not in his kimono?
And I always thought Charlie was a great interviewer, but I have to say this was one of the worst interviews ever. Also, somewhat misrepresented because the headline said Larry Ellison says Apple is doomed without Jobs.
We saw Apple without Steve Jobs. We saw Apple with Steve Jobs. Now we're going to see Apple without Steve Jobs.
What he says, which is true, and we all know, we've observed many times, that he says we've already done the experiment. Look how Apple did without Steve Jobs the first time. But on follow-up, he doesn't say Apple is doomed by any means.
Well, it's a much different company than it was.
Yeah, and I don't think that that's fair to say Larry sees dark future or anything of the sort.
It was a very carefully chosen clip,
Yes.
and it completely lacks context because Steve Jobs was forced out of Apple the first time his favorite sugar water salesman took over, and then he eventually went back. Now he left Apple. He built up an entire culture there. He'd hired Tim Cook and Johnny Ive, and well, he didn't hire him, but he brought Johnny Ive to the position he's in today, and he trained Apple. Apple is, and I think Gruber said this a year ago, Apple is Steve Jobs' biggest product. And that was absolutely not the case when Steve Jobs left the first time. But the thing that I'm curious about most, Leo, is that why we spend so much time paying attention to people who, he was Steve Jobs' friend, but his claim to fame is being smart enough to sell amongst the worst database technology ever to everybody.
Right.
And I'm not sure what particular insight that gives us to the future of Apple.
Well, but he did spend time. In fact, the thing that's worth watching the interview for is him talking about the last days of Steve. He said, I used to go, every week we'd take a walk. The walks got shorter and shorter. Eventually, Steve couldn't take the walk. And a few days before he passed away, Steve, and I did not know this, stopped taking his medication. He said, he basically gave up. He said, I'm in too much pain. It's not worth it. He said Steve was one of the strongest fighters I knew. And when Steve couldn't take it anymore, then you really knew it was over. That is worth watching. The rest of it, who cares what Larry Ellison thinks? He also says that, and it's so amazing because, first of all, Larry never gives interviews, so the fact that he gave an interview, it all becomes much more important than it ought to be. But secondly, he says, he's quoted as saying, Larry Page is evil. He's actually very careful not to say that Larry Page is evil. He's just pissed off that they're suing him over Java, that Android isn't licensing Java from Oracle. But he's very careful to say no, he's not evil. And I don't think it's all reading between the lines to say that Apple is doomed. You saw the thing. He went up with Apple without Steve. He went down, and now we saw Apple without Steve Jobs up, and then now we're going to see Apple without Steve Jobs.
Hand movement.
But he doesn't say doomed by any means. I think what it remains is we don't know what's going to happen. And I think for The Verge and others to say Apple is doomed, Larry Ellison says Apple is doomed, is misquoting him.
Well, it's good. It got people to look at it, got us to talk about it.
Yeah, and I might say that there could have been a better interview, but frankly, it couldn't have gotten more attention. So I guess it depends what your goal is. It certainly did get a lot of attention. Anything else we want to talk about before we go to a break and get our picks of the week?
I do think it's interesting, though, Leo, and I don't think it's not totally fair, but Steve Jobs' claim to fame was taking amazing technologies and mainstream them so that everybody could benefit, where some companies, and I won't mention any names, but they might have just been interviewed and we might have just talked about them, his claim to fame was stomping smaller companies with better technology so they never hit the mainstream. And I think if you look at it in that sort of dichotomy, it's really interesting that Apple is carrying on Steve Jobs' legacy of bringing new technologies to market fast and not just buying or destroying small companies that have really clever ideas. They bought Authentic. We might see Authentic now faster in the mainstream than we might otherwise have seen it. They didn't, decide, a PIN code is better. No one should ever know that biometrics exists.
Right. And yes, for those folks who are on Time Warner who didn't get to see the Charlie Rose interview, you didn't miss a thing. Feel better. Well, you know what you missed was his excellent face work. I thought that the plastic surgery has really gone well for him. That's about it.
Have we talked about Apple's $10 iPhone power supply replacement program?
No, we haven't. Of course, this all started because a woman in China, and it's unclear what the truth is in this story, but the story in China was plugged in her iPhone or had her iPhone charging on a stock iPhone charger with a stock iPhone that she bought at the Apple store, picked it up and electrocuted herself to death when it rang. And Apple did apologize, although I don't know if there were to blame. It's just as likely that there were bad chargers that looked like Apple chargers. So what are they doing? Are they offering to replace all of them?
If you walk into an Apple store after August 16th with a third-party charger and give them $10, they will swap it for an Apple one.
Ah, that's great. So if you were stupid enough to buy...
They're trying to get guns off the street.
Yeah, because these pirated chargers don't... For instance, one of the real problems with lithium-ion is you have to stop charging it. Now, actually, the phone would do that, probably. But you have to stop charging it once it gets full. Otherwise, it will explode, or at least burst into flame.
I have had theories that some of the third-party ones that I use that charge my phone really fast have decreased the overall
that may be also true.
Battery power of my
fast charging is not good for the phone. The other issue was probably that charger had a short circuit because you're not going to get, and in China I think it's 220 volts, which is certainly enough to kill you. You're not going to get 220 over a USB charger unless there's some sort of short circuit.
I'm going to say that's going to leave a mark.
It's going to hurt. So good for Apple. Yeah, if you have a third-party charger, if you were foolish enough to buy one.
I have third-party chargers. In fact, I almost
exactly.
I was like, I have a lot of third-party chargers.
And the ones we've recommended on this show over the past couple of years.
I know.
Oh yeah, come to think of it, I never use Apple chargers
because they only have one. They only have one outlet.
A couple of them are nice.
I don't know if they're talking about chargers or they're talking about AC adapters, which the pictures all show AC adapters.
AC adapters? What's that for?
Well, I mean, not the 10-watt, not the 10-watt brick, but the one that you get free with an iPhone. Yes.
That doesn't have an. That we're calling that the charger. The thing with the USB port on one end.
Some people might think we're talking about Mophis, which were...
No. That right there.
But, I mean, I have a couple of the Apple ones.
I never use them.
I don't buy any of them. I mean, it's just because they only have one outlet.
It is sensible not to buy Apple chargers on eBay.
Right.
Get them from a reliable retailer, preferably with a reliable name. The ones we've recommended all have been reliable and are unlikely to electrocute you.
Also, Apple has a certification program for iPhone for any iPhone product. So if you bought like a Griffin adapter, it's probably okay, and it's probably worth more than the adapter that you're about to swap your $40 multi-port Griffin power dock adapter for. But yeah, if there's a put it this way, if there's a flea market nearby and you see a whole bunch of like $2 Chinese off-brand iPhone chargers,
turns out that
Maybe worth it.
Do any of you actually, out of curiosity, unplug your phone before you answer it? Pick it up?
No.
So
sometimes I plug it in to answer. Sometimes I plug it in to answer because it's dead. So it's like, oh, I got to plug this in quickly.
And it's also it's a nice bit of nostalgia. Back then when we were little children and we had to pick up the phone and there was a wire on the bottom of it.
I know.
The red card cost just a nickel and Cokes were 50 cents in glass bottles.
We got one of those. You've seen those. You've seen those ones that are a handset that you pop into your
phone,
into
jack?
your phone.
Yeah, your audio jack.
Hello. I looked over and my son had that on. Like he had on, and I couldn't figure out why. It was because it was outside of the time that he's allowed to use the phone,
but he could.
So he figured out that if he plugged it in, he could play Field Runners and no one would hear him. And so he's sitting there, it looks like he's talking like this little 5-year-old like this, playing Field Runners and over in the corner. And I was like, he's a scary boy.
So smart. But you have to admit that the cradle was a better shape than just the kind of slab of glass. It's not a great shape.
No. Well, I don't usually put it up to my head though. I mean, I usually have
I have
a headset
all over it.
I mean, I usually have a headset all the time on.
All right, let's take a break. You guys could pick some stuff that you really like. How about that?
I forgot my pick over in the other office. I'm going to run over and get it.
You got plenty of time because I'm about to talk about my favorite place to sell my gadgets. Gazelle.com. Gazelle is, of course, the place you need to know about now as we approach the big reveal for the new whatever. Because you can get a 30-day quote. Now, I got to tell you, as soon as Apple says this is the iPhone 5, the 5S, the price of the 5 is going to start dropping, right? You won't be, because it's less valuable. So now's the time to go to Gazelle.com and get the quote for your iPhone 5. It's locked in for 30 days. That's going to give you plenty of time. Let me just check off the top of my head. I'm kind of $320 for that 64-gig AT&T iPhone 5. Yes! Let's go buy me the new phone. That's not even in flawless condition. That's just in good condition. They will buy broken iPhones. They're one of the few people that will do that, which is awesome. They also buy a larger sample of tablets. So maybe you got that Kindle Fire and you're saying, yeah, I wish I had a real tablet. You can sell it on Gazelle. Samsung, Google Nexus, Kindle Fire, Microsoft Surface, and Asus tablets. GAZELLE.com. Payments fast. Within a few days of the item being received, they will wipe it. They're data experts. If you forget, don't worry. They're completely trustworthy. They'll wipe off the data. Sometimes they look at it and they go, this is in much better shape than you said it was. We're going to give you more money. Never heard of a company doing that, but Gazelle will. They've paid over $100 million out now to half. Look at that. The 4S is worth $210. That's enough. That's great. That's going to pay. If you're due for an upgrade, it's basically a free upgrade, because they're going to pay the $200. Offers are good for 30 days, $100 million to over 500,000 customers. They pay for shipping. Most items qualify for the free box, the free shipping. Fast process, no listing hassles. They just do it for you. You got to do it. What is your iPhone, your Samsung phone, your Android phone worth? Take a minute, or your tablet. Go to Gazelle.com and find out. Gazelle. Sell your gadgets the fast and simple way. And you know what? This is also the best way to recycle them. Why let them collect dust in a drawer or fill up the landfill when you can get real hard cash from Gazelle? By the way, a little pro tip: if you use you can take check, PayPal, but they also have Amazon gift cards. If you buy, like I do, a lot of stuff on Amazon, that's worth it because they bump it 5%. Just a little pro tip. Gazelle.
You buy stuff on Amazon?
Don't you? I buy my toilet paper on Amazon.
I buy all non-perishable goods on Amazon.
Everything. There's a truck coming up to my door every day.
Like a couple.
When I go home from work, I say, "Oh, let's see what Amazon brought me today."
It's like Christmas every day, except I paid for it.
I do a subscribe and save. Do you do that?
What's subscribe and save?
So if there's things like household goods.
Oh, I used to do that, but then I ended up with a lot of toilet paper that way.
You have to spend a little energy as the subscription goes on to titrate toilet paper titration. Very important, so that you get the right amount of toilet paper. Because you can.
You know what happened is I switched from it. I went to a Japanese bidet toilet, and then I ended up.
You don't need toilet paper. It washes your butt for you.
It does.
Does it really? I mean,
that is so awesome.
It's so weird.
That's all I gotta say. It's so awesome.
Can I come over and use your toilet?
Yeah, you can come over and use my toilet. I've actually been talking about installing one here just because I don't like. I was going to install one here. That's all I'm going to say. So then you can use it here.
I'll go halvesies.
You go halvesies with me? Oh, I'll pay for it. Let's knock it out.
Will it be reliable enough to take the huge amount of traffic?
Yeah. In Japan,
my employees go to the bathroom a lot. I don't know about yours.
Well, not everyone will use it because they'll think it's weird. So it'll just
we
be
only
people,
have one
it'll
toilet
just people
in the men's room.
the know. It'll be people in the know.
Are you gonna put it in the girls' room or the men's room?
Put it in the men's room. I'm not going to the girls' room.
This is going to be launching in 2014. On the
Lisa can get the.
Okay, that's what we'll do.
With,
we'll buy the ladies' room. You buy the men's room. I heard a little peep. You don't want a Japanese butt washing toilet?
Week in sanitary
Look, if you don't like it, just don't use it. That's all I'm saying.
I want to get the Toto double cyclone.
You don't have to get the whole toilet. You just get the toilet seat. That's all I'm saying.
Is this the one, the NeoRest 550H?
No, you don't need to get that one.
It's got the breakthrough e-water technology.
I don't know anything about that.
Somebody said Totos are the best.
I don't think I have Toto.
Do they make urinals that wash your... Well, never mind. All right, we're going to stop right here because it's time. Although Toto or any other...
I have a Brondell.
Brondo?
A Brondell.
Brondell?
A Brondell.
If you want to advertise on the show, we'll be glad to test out your toilet butt washing technology.
There's a whole podcast
coming
somewhere.
soon.
You have to have a certain amount of water pressure?
No,
Okay.
it does it. It does it all on its own. You just
I don't know if our water pressure is good enough. Here.
No,
I just don't.
I don't have good water pressure. You just route it into the water, into the thing that's coming. I installed it myself.
What is it?
It's this Brondell. I don't have the
Brondell, and it's on Amazon apparently.
Yeah, I bought it from Amazon. That's how I thought about it.
I could have it. I could have it tomorrow.
You could have it tomorrow.
How hard is it to install? Don't you have to plumb it?
It took me. You have to. No, the plumbing is easy. You have to get an outlet put. One of those like water safe outlets.
Did you get the 1,000-watt S-Wash advanced toilet?
Yeah. If I look at the controller.
Okay, I can't. I'm sorry. I'm gonna turn into an 8-year-old. I'm sorry. Let's start with Andy Anatko. He's a much more mature person. His pick of the week.
New England, it's such a practical and functional item that we don't spend a whole lot of time using. That's all. Anyway, I'm just saying, West Coast, East Coast.
I think you're right.
That's all I'm saying. Really cool item from cablejive.com. This unassuming little thing is called the Dock Boss Air. And all it is it has an old-fashioned iPhone, iPod style dock connector, and it is a Bluetooth audio transformer. So
I've tried a bunch of the cheap off-brand ones that didn't work that well. So this works well.
Yeah, and this works fine. So if you spend a few $100s on a really nice dock, the speakers are still great. Yeah. This costs $35. You put it in here, you pair it with your phone or device, just like any other Bluetooth. It'll just turn it into a Bluetooth ready speaker system.
Now, does that work with? Do you know with the Sonos dock?
I don't know that it works with the Sonos. It works great. It's why my iPod Hi-Fi is still a useful item here in my office. Because
I still use my Hi-Fi.
It's a really great speaker, but it was such a pain in the butt to have to walk over and actually plug in a device to actually make it to work. There was also a few years ago I got after they made the first change to the dock connector, they made sort of like a elevator stand that was like a few inches high that if you sort of wanted to balance your old style dock phone on the top of it, you could still make it work with the iPod Hi-Fi. But this is I've used it with like three or four different dock. Excuse me.
This is from CableJive.
CableJive.com.
CableJive.
$35.
I just bought one. I'll let you know if it works with the Sonos, because right now Sonos doesn't even make the dock anymore because they didn't want to make a Lightning dock. So, but I have to have an adapter that goes from my iPhone 5 into the dock, but it'd be really nice if I just do it via Bluetooth.
It's worked with almost everything I've tried. I do have to correct myself. I don't know why I said. I guess I just want to say something unkind about the iPod Hi-Fi. I have not tried it with the iPod Hi-Fi. I've used it with like all the different dock connectors that dock speakers I've had in the past 2 or 3 years.
It says it works for the Bose Sound Dock and other iPod and iPhone audio docks, including iHome, Bose Sound Dock, JBL, Logitech, Sony, and others. So I bet it works with everything, right?
And remember the first iPod Hi-Fi, because it has the old style connector, it wouldn't power certain devices. So I will not promise you that it works with this because have not tried it.
It needs enough juice to because that's the little radio.
It may not work, but again, it does work with the Bose that I have. It does work with the iHome dock that I have. And it's a good way
that would be so cool. It would also make it possible for me to use my Android device with my 30-pin dock.
Yeah, and it will also, I mean, the information page here also indicates that if you just plug it into any sort of like a dock any sort of like a cable style dock adapter, it will also just simply give Bluetooth audio to any device that will work with a old style cable connector. I have not tried that myself. Again, this is just a way to, you get this thing that cost you $185, 4 years ago, and it's still a good speaker. You just can't use it with your current phone. But now you just put this in the guest room, put this in the office, put this in the kitchen. Now you have a working.
That would be so handy for me. Yeah. Well, good. I'll let you know if it works with the Sonos. I bet it does. Adam Christensen, Maccast.com, the granddaddy of the Macintosh podcasts. Which is amazing since he's such a young guy. You know what I didn't ask you, Adam? I meant to. Are you still in touch with your friends? Nick, of course, NIK software got purchased by Google because the Snapseed app was so great. And they are now giving away the Nick plugins, which is so cool.
Yeah.
Are they all happy there? Are they still there?
Well, the salespeople aren't so happy.
Yeah, because there's no money to be made. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know that a lot of those people transitioned. I'm not really close. I was already out of the company when that whole thing went down. So I knew some people there. People moved on. In general, everybody's really happy. I mean, the engineers are all over there. It's great for consumers, obviously.
They're not free. I apologize. $150 though for the full collection.
Yeah, they're
huge
the full suite, which I think used to be upwards of $500, $600 if I remember from when I was there, is now like $150.
Yep.
But they made Snapseed free, which I absolutely love. My favorite photo editor. I guess that could be the bonus pick. I'm sure it's been picked before though. That's what I use for editing all my photos on my iOS devices, and it's just really great technology. I mean, the selective color correction technology that they have in there, something they called Upoint, is really the secret sauce to all of their stuff. So, good acquisition choice.
But that's not your pick, so
that is not my pick. I wanted to go Mac, and I wanted to go with something that I knew hadn't been picked, so I went pretty specific. I dipped into my own background. So I mentioned earlier I'm a programmer. I don't remember if that was pre-show or not, but I do web development, and source control is always an important thing, and something I wasn't doing, and I got into about a year ago. I had tried different systems, and I ended up using a system called Git, G-I-T, because it's built into your Macs. Yeah. It actually works with Xcode, but I wasn't really happy. I use GitHub, which is a service that lets you have your repository where you store all of your changed file information and stuff like that. And they have a little application that's great for managing your repository and checking things in and out. Well, it's not technically checking things in and out, but people get the point. But I wanted something a little more robust. You can do all this from the command line. I'm also a terminal guy, so I was perfectly happy to do it from the command line, but I like a nice GUI. And so I was looking for something, and I ran across Tower, which is for managing your Git repositories. And it integrates with all of the services. So GitHub, Beanstalk, you just plug into your repository, and you can manage your code both remotely and your local repos, repositories, and it just is amazing. And it's got this great visual interface, so I know what's going on. Two big features that I was looking for that I didn't find in the GitHub app. What was stashing. I didn't like how you could stash code for people who know what that is. And then also I wanted to be able to rebase, which is a different sort of way of different philosophy from merging, which are kind of two ways to bring your code back together when you branch off code to say work on a new feature or a new release, and you need to bring that code back into the main code base. So
this sounds great. I've just used the command line Git, and this sounds so much better.
Yeah, and I mean, programmers use Git, but I know writers who use it to keep track of just the stuff that they write.
That's funny. When I was going to collaborate on a book, Gina Smith and I were going to use Git didn't exist, SVN, to do that, to keep track of our revisions and so forth.
Yeah, and it's a little less relevant now because OS 10 has versions, and it's pretty much. I'm not entirely positive they're not leveraging Git under the hood somewhere. I've never delved that deep into it, but probably not. But I've often wondered because it's there in OS 10. It's in the core, so why not?
And you could use this with GitHub, so you could store it in a GitHub as well.
Yeah, that's literally what I do. I also do a lot of just local stuff. So when I'm working on little projects or little sandbox things that I'm trying out, I like to keep track of my revisions so that, if something goes wrong, you're testing something out, you just want to roll back to something, it makes it super easy. I mean, you literally just right click and okay, go back to this revision, and I can get back to where I was, and I don't lose code, and you maintain it, and you can pull bits and pieces out. It was always bad because you do that thing where you'd have multiple files. So I used to have the system where I'd have .old and .older and .oldest, so I could go back. But this takes care of all of that. So,
thank you, madam. It was great to have you on the show. Maccast.com, as somebody said in the chat room, the very first Mac podcast I ever listened to.
Yeah, it's been a long time. We're still here, Leo.
When did you start?
2004.
Oh yeah, you beat me by a year.
Yeah.
Very nice. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Rene Ritchie's pick of the week.
I am picking Disney Animated, which is an iPad app. It came out on the weekend.
So awesome.
When I was a kid, my mother had this book, that giant Dungeons and Dragons style tome that had page after page of how they made all the original Disney cel animated movies, and I must have read it thousands of times. It was one of my favorite books. And so this weekend I saw Louis Mantia tweeting about this app, and I immediately went. I think it's $13.99, but it's worth 10 times that amount of money. And what it's got so much content, I don't even know where to begin. You can look at how the movies are made. There's a timeline of Disney movies. There's model making, so you can take one of the characters from Wreck-It Ralph and create your own little scenes. It's got so much of, and I don't want to use this, people throw this word around, but it's got so much of the magic of Disney in it. And it's right on your iPad, wherever you want to take it. It's one of the best multimedia sort of experiences I've seen. And it's such an amazingly well done app, especially for a company like Disney to put all of this into the iPad. I thought it was just fantastic, and I've been going through it. I'm nowhere near finished for the last 2 days.
Very nice. Yeah, I downloaded it right away. It is mind-boggling. We picked it as our pick of the week on iPad today. Really beautiful.
Yeah. From Touch Press, the same guys who did Elements and
really?
Pyramids 3D. They do fabulous work. One of my favorite features in this one is they have this thing called the color map that basically shows you every Disney film just as the colors, but then you can sort of dive in and look at the individual scenes. They have stills, the entire movie in this sort of timeline view. It's unbelievable.
It's pretty amazing that they could do this. There's the color map,
Yeah, I hope they do this for their Star Wars properties. I hope they do this for their Marvel properties. And I hope other companies like Warner start doing this because, you have all those books, like the visual encyclopedias, and you see them whenever you go to a traditional bookstore. And just the ability to have it on an iPad is so much easier, and you can do so much more with it.
Yep.
Well, and I think that what we didn't touch upon today was, of course, all the, I think you guys dealt with it a lot last week, all the patent, or not the ebook stuff. And I think that what Apple is missing, I think everyone's missing it to some degree, but I think Apple hasn't capitalized on it enough. And rather than trying to compete in the ebook market, is to really use this as a platform for the next generation of books. And I think that what these guys are doing is the next generation. I mean, this is what everything looks like 10 or 15 years from now. Like that. This is what you're going to expect. Your manuals, your obviously your textbooks, everything else. And people are getting, they're going there as slowly as they can because it's hard. It's hard to do it well, but it's a great example. I buy everything that they make. It's just as reference.
I think Serenity Caldwell mentioned it when she was on the show, but Pushbot Press went to Facebook, and they haven't seen much from them. But Apple has made iTunes Author, and they haven't really updated it since. But there's so much opportunity to make these kind of tools so that anybody can start building the exact books.
Well, I think that's the frustrating thing is that Apple built some tools and then just doesn't. Okay, here's something you can kind of do that with, but iBook Author wants to be a lot more than that. And they should. That's the kind of app I think they should be developing over and over and over again.
Apple's too small.
I know, they just don't have the money to put behind development.
They do amazing stuff like Aperture and then let it sit for 3 years.
Right.
And it's a shame because these are great programs. I mean, Author is an amazing free program.
Exactly, and I would love to see them make a pro version and charge $300 and develop and update it all the time.
To do that, I just think that there's.
I guess
apparently there's a scarcity of talent.
I know, and the problem is that I guess the way that they should acquire the talent the same way Google or a lot of other people would acquire, just buy a bunch of that company, you know, and then you know, or buy these companies and build that in. But the talent acquisition is an easier way to do that. Dr.
T.S., what age would be appropriate for Disney animated? I think there's something for everybody. But any 8-year-old or up would be able to use all of the features of it.
I haven't handed it to my son yet, but just because I haven't had time to share my
browse and look at it,
he would just dig in. Yeah, he would just dig in.
He wouldn't be able to get all the value out of it, but he'd get.
He'd probably get more than I do. I mean, he's.
There's an animator you can actually learn animation in it, which is pretty cool.
Right. Yeah.
One of the things that's cool too. I mean, Apple can't do everything, and we saw with Push Pop Press and Mike Mattis that independents can do this. The people who made Wonders of the Universe have a platform called Glide that they actually built the app in, and they're starting to make that available to other people who want to start making those kind of experiences too. And if I could make Wonders of the Universe with whatever subject I want, that would be fantastic.
Right. Your pick of the week, Mr. Alex Lindsay.
So I became obsessed, and I
this is not became.
I get obsessed.
It's not anything new, but go ahead.
Anyway, so one of the issues that we have is we have a lot of need. We use iPhones and more often iPod Touches as heads-up displays. So that we can.
Let me think about that. You use
what I mean by that is
we did it for Max Trollbot. We put an iPhone inside the head because you couldn't see.
We do it a lot because we want
like that.
No, I don't mean heads up. Like I mean, we think of it as heads up displays. But it's
an
just
extra small monitor
when you're in an event. So we do a lot of Hangouts, and we want to be able to talk to you while you're in the event. And so we want to attach iPhones or iPads or Android phones or whatever next to your monitor so that I can sit there and send you messages and stuff like that.
Right.
And so mounting those becomes the obsession. And so I literally went and bought every quarter 20 mount that I could find on the internet. And I've taken all of those. There's probably like 20 of them. And I've condensed them down to the 3 that I'm going to show you.
Okay.
And I'll show you my pick, but they're for different reasons.
These would be for mounting iPhones in various
positions. If you want to mount an iPhone or an Android phone or anything else, because most of these are, all of these 3, one of the requirements that became important to us was that they were adjustable so that you could put either an Android or an iPhone and mount them. So
do we have a close-up for Alex, or should I use my close-up cam?
I can hand.
I think we have your close-up cam, so you can fondle them on your own there.
So there's different.
We don't. Oh,
okay. So I'll hand you the first one. So
hand it to me.
First one. This one's inexpensive.
I shall be your hand model.
Now, you're going to see this in a bunch of prices. The same Chinese company makes all of them.
So it's got bendy legs for tripods.
The bendy leg, they come with bendy legs. They come with Joby-like legs.
This is the
they
key
come
thing.
with, so see that's a little adjustable.
That fits anything.
It's got a cute little handle on the top that you can kind of like see.
Most of the time you're going to do it like
that.
Yeah,
exactly. And so there you go. And the important piece of that feature is if you unscrew that little the little tripod there.
Yeah.
You got a little. You can hook that into any tripod mount. You can also get what? Sorry, say that again.
Sold.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, but wait, there's more. There's more. Okay, so the main thing is that remember that you can also get. I forgot to bring one down, but you can also get a mount that would allow you to put it on a cold shoe mount or hot shoe mount. You can slide it on top of your camera.
Where
so
your flash would go.
And why that's important? When I've used that for like CES and so on and so forth is I'll take my camera and I'll put my notes. So I walk around CES and I take all my notes of what I want to say about this product, and then I can put it on my iPhone and clip it to the top of my camera so that I'm looking at it while I'm talking and I'm showing stuff. And so anyway, it's kind of
these
useful.
are big enough to go as big as maybe a Galaxy Note 2.
Right. They won't fit everything, but they're
certainly not a tablet. I wonder if somebody makes a tablet version.
Yeah, they do.
They do because that's
there's. I didn't bring the tablet ones. I have a lot of those.
That's very useful. I actually have one of these, and it really because it holds any phone
with a little tripod. With a little tripod that's kind of like the Joby used to. The little ones that used to be there.
Yeah.
Or this little one. This is like $8.99. So it's cheap. And we have now started adding them to a lot of our kits. That tripod, I said, there's a lot of different tripods. You can buy little tripods. You can do a lot of, but we put them in a lot of our kits now because they're so cheap. It's $8.99. Yeah. Okay,
right. So that's one.
One that's a little bit more.
Now,
rigid.
Who makes this, or is it just
like it's a knockoff? It's
anybody.
You'll see. Just look for it. Star, I think, is the one that we got. They come in, but the only thing that makes difference is what bag they come in. They're all, I thought that they were different and I ordered them and I have like 6 of them that are all the same. Yeah. So they're just different pictures. So this one's made by Thought Out and this is part of the PED series.
They do some really good stuff. I have a number of their
Yeah, the construction
and these are
is really
sized
great.
specifically
Now,
for the device.
Well,
so you got to get
it's
it to the
not
right.
not exactly. Here,
No?
you can use.
You can arrange it.
Here, you can put my iPhone in there.
So here's an.
Yeah, if you look on the other side of that, this one's a little bit more rigid. What I like about it is
there is
that
a little bit of movement.
so you can unscrew those with a little Allen wrench that comes with it, and then adjust it.
So you do make this for whatever phone you're going to use, but then once you tighten it down, it's going to be for that phone.
Exactly, and I like the arm. Separates it out. It's about $35. It's a little bit more expensive. It's going to last longer. It's also got the quarter 20. All of them have quarter 20.
Quarter 20, right?
Yeah. Okay. And so it's kind of a cool little way to you can put it on top of your tripod and get it up there as a display mount.
When are they going to make cars with thread?
Oh, that would be so awesome.
Tripod car.
But the main thing is, even for cars, I mean, a lot of times you can get there's all kinds of things that'll attach to your car or attach to anything that'll
Suction
go to
cups.
That'll go to a quarter 20. So once you get the quarter 20, you're kind of you're
That's what I
off
need.
to the
I
races.
need a suction cup with a male quarter 20. Quarter 20, by the way, is the name of the standard threading for tripods, right?
Right.
So what is it? What does it stand for? Quarter inch.
Quarter. It's
20.
It's
20
number
twists.
revolution. 20 twists per inch. And by the way, someone on the IRC said that the case star is $27, but there are versions with a tripod that are $8.99. So but they're all knockoffs and they're all the same. That's what.
So don't get the expensive one.
Yeah, and then the this one is the coolest one that I carry around now all the time. Like you just got to make sure. Check that out. So this is made by Joby, and we like Joby. Joby has lots of. They make great. Unfold it. It folds out.
Oh, what? Whoa! It's doing something. Oh, look! So I could put a phone in it. It's similar. Same idea. A little squeezy clamp.
But it's tiny, so you can put it into your bag and everything else, and it's just like it's almost non-existent. And I don't know how much that is. It's like $20 or $30.
Is that expensive?
So it's maybe $19 or something like that. But it's well built, well designed, fits in your pocket. I keep one in my Scotty vest. Like in my little, just like I gotta attach this to something. And
it's called their Grip Tight.
It's $19.95. So
Grip Tight mount.
Yeah, Grip Tight, and it's just a great little. And so it's if there's the one that I'm carrying around is the Joby, so I'll make that my pick. But all of these are useful in different ways. As I said, if you're looking for the cost conscious, these little K-Star ones are great. But the Joby is just so well. Like I just love things that someone really. That took a lot of work.
Just ordered one on Amazon Prime.
Yeah. So anyway, and it's just a great thing to have around, especially if you're doing any kind of production or anything where you might want to do it. Because now you can go, once you have one of these, you can go to any phone store, any Best Buy, grab a tripod, throw this on, and boom, you've got
including
it
a GorillaPod. If you have a Joby GorillaPod, that'll work fine with it. But
exactly.
It doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be. It can be anything. And now you can shoot images. So this could, I use it for heads up, but you can also obviously use it for travel photography and all these other fun stuff. So anyway, that's my pick.
I need a little small packable monopod for my next trip.
I don't have small packable ones.
I know.
I have that big Manfrotto one.
Manfrotto that weighs 20 pounds. But man, is that good.
And you can defend yourself and your camera. I have.
I booked a photo walk in Venice for next month.
That sounds like fun.
I can't wait. Yeah. Hey, boy, this was a lot of fun. You guys are great. I really appreciate this gathering every Tuesday of MacBreak Weekly. Of course, our regulars are Andy Anako from the Chicago Sun-Times. Really nice to have you, Andy.
Always a slice.
Renee Ritchie of imore.com. Both of you will be in town in a couple of weeks.
Sir.
About a month. And we'll certainly do a special MacBreak Weekly on that Tuesday. Alex Lindsay, I hope you're planning to be here September 10th. Just cancel your whatever you've got.
I am planning to. We have an event. We have a couple events that week, but I'm planning to be here.
You best be here.
Yes.
We need you.
Yes.
I was worried because I'm leaving on the 17th. I said, I hope Apple does. And they obviously took into consideration. Yeah, they took into consideration my schedule. And, of course, the great Adam Christensen from MacCast, MacCast.com. Great to have you.
Hey, thanks for having me again.
Come back soon.
Really appreciate it.
Are you going to when are you going to be in the Bay Area? Are you going to come here for Mac World or whatever they call it next year?
Yeah, I'll be there for Macworld. I usually, would come up to Petaluma for the
the North Bay Macintosh Users Groups has a little conference, a little expo.
Yeah, they don't anymore. So
that was it. That was the last one.
It was in October, yeah. So unfortunately, I won't be up there then, but certainly for Macworld, I'll be there.
Dealio. We'll see you then, if not sooner. Thank you all for joining us. We do this show 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1900 UTC on twit.tv every Tuesday. Please tune in and watch live. It's really fun to have you. watching and participating. But if you can't, we make on-demand video always available after the fact, anytime you want. Just go to twit.tv/mbw or, subscribe. That way you'll get it every week. And iTunes and everything else has it, of course. What else should I say? Nothing more to say except get back to work because break time is over.